Thank you.
Right.
Are you suggesting that someone's trying to make a real-life sequel?
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck. No.
2 in the box!
Ready to go.
We be fast and
They be slow.
Wow.
A second Super Saiyan?
Second in order, perhaps, but by no means in stature. Your fight is with me now.
And when I kill you, I will have killed the last Jedi.
Man, I can't fucking believe this. Another basement, another elevator. How could the same shit happen to the same guy twice?
Oh, please, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
Hey everyone, this is Cris, your host here at Inside the Sequel. You know what this is, the podcast where we talk about sequel movies that don't get enough love or attention, and they definitely do deserve it. So we bring them onto this podcast show so we can give them the praise that they deserve. So today we have a very special episode. It's definitely one of my favorites and most looked forward to. I knew I was going to do an episode about this as soon as I started this podcast. And that, of course, is 1985's Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Someone is coming back to Elm Street. He is not friendly. He is not patient.
Kill for me.
And he is not a welcome visitor. But he has something terribly special for the new kid on the block.
It started to happen again.
Dad!
I'm in trouble. You've had some scary dreams, okay? Help!
Daddy can't help you now.
Freddy Krueger is back on Elm Street.
Get out of here, Lisa!
Jesse, fight him!
Watch out for him. He'll be in your neighborhood soon.
You are all my children now.
A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 2.
You've got the body. I've got the brain.
Freddy's Revenge.
And I knew I couldn't just talk about this movie by myself because I had an older dingy podcast that was the first episode. I knew I wanted to talk about it with somebody because it's like, I know I can't be the only person in the world that loves this movie. But now, as of a few years have passed, I've figured there's a bunch of people now that like this movie. And there definitely is. And I want to be one of my favorite people here who knows a lot about movies. It's Jennifer Johnmeyer. She worked for the Alamo Film Club, and she was the talent there. She just basically she was the reason why everyone went to the Alamo movie theater. Unfortunately, the Alamo, like most movie theaters right now, is under some trouble because of COVID, but she was nice enough to be on this podcast episode. And here she is. Jennifer, why don't you say hi?
Hello, it's great to be back. I was just looking at our previous call, and it was in April. We were so young and full of hope then, you know. Now look at us.
I know, right? The first thing you said is you got hair on your face, and I was like, oh gosh, you're right. Things have changed.
I never would have thought when we had that call that we would still be sitting in our houses 7 months later. But it's what's happening. The
right.
New world, man.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, you worked a lot when you were at the Alamo, and working in general is it's hard to watch movies and stuff. But now we got what we wanted. We have plenty of time now to watch movies.
Listen, how many times have you thought, "Be careful what you wish for"? You know,
right.
It's all these things that you say you're going to do if you have the time, and then you have the time and you're like, oh, did I really want to do that? Or like,
seriously.
Yeah.
So I know it's like brought into light, like all the things that I haven't been keeping up with in my busy life before COVID. It's like the basic necessities, like exercise and like eating right and like being just doing something other than watching movies. And it's like now that I'm having to stay at home, I'm like, man, it's really tough even when you're not working to do these things. But you've been actually, at least from what I see, you're like the pro at all of this. Like you said, you're pro at being at home. You're, with your blog and with your exercise posts. It's very motivating. I'm going to be like Ryan Gosling. Very, very exciting stuff there.
Yeah. It's, because I don't want to go to the gym because I feel like that is the worst idea right now. And so I was just, for a couple of months, I was just sitting at home, and I was like literally sitting at home, and I gained 17 pounds in like 10 minutes. It was so easy. And so then I finally found a good program, like at-home workout program and group of people. So it's still like, you know, you still have your gym friends, even though you're not in the gym. And that's saved me, honestly. Because once you have a good, like, once your physical health is in good shape, then you can really focus on, it opens up your brain, I think, to focus on a lot of other things. So not to get too off track.
Oh,
but
no.
Just Jen's tips on living at home.
Yes, Jen is like the pro at like giving life advice, leading through example. Her blog is honestly awesome. I check it out pretty often when you make posts, because it's pretty inspiring stuff. I'm not trying to be cheesy or rubbing elbows or anything, but it is very inspiring, especially now with everything going on. And there is some good tips on like how to, it's basically like the survival guide of quarantine and just living a healthier lifestyle. Like some people like me definitely need that. So really appreciate it. Keep it up.
Oh yeah. You know, I love you. I mean, like I really appreciate you, and I'm always going to do anything you're down for, because I love, even though movies aren't my whole focus anymore, which has been a whole mourning period of its own, I still want to talk about movies. You know, even like there's not a lot of new content. It's been good in that it's helped me brush up on all the old stuff that I missed before, or stuff I hadn't seen, as in the case of Nightmare 2. You know, like I hadn't seen it. And so just, I was rewatching parts of it, and then Scream Queen again last night. I'm like, oh my God. I remember thinking this was just the scariest thing when I was a kid.
Rewatching classics, like that's like the big thing for me. It's like buying a bunch of physical movies and saying you're going to watch them when you do, and then you don't have the time for them. But now I definitely do. Like I watch like 6 new movies I've owned and had on like my queue of my shelf forever. And then I watch them and I'm like, well, that didn't take that long at all. You know, it's like, you know, just, you really start to realize like how much you're procrastinating when you're busy, you know, and you just want to like sit at home and relax after a while. But, yeah, speaking of like nothing new coming out, have you been like doing maybe like any VODs or like some streaming? I know like Netflix originals are like, there's like so many of those. And, you know, I know there's a few streaming channels that are putting out like smaller indie movies. I don't know if you've been watching any of those at all.
Been watching a lot. First, well, then I'm just like binging stuff. So I watched all of Queen's Gambit, you know, on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen that. But that was kind of a 15-hour, over the course of 15 hours, watching like the whole limited series. I watched Borat. I watched the new Borat, which
I'm jealous.
recommend.
I've been wanting to see that.
Oh my God, it's worth it. Like, you know, the first one, it was funny enough, you know, but it's like when so much time passes between something like that, I always call it the Anchorman effect, you know, like, because Anchorman, it was like, 10 years between the first one and the sequel. So it's like you get all of that hope built up, and then you're almost inevitably disappointed, because it's impossible to really like have a movie be as good as you have it in your mind after that much time has passed. But he nailed it. I laughed a lot. I don't know that I really stopped laughing. I find it fascinating that he's able to just pull any of those guys, anybody who basks in satire, I guess, and that they're able to keep a straight face. So I recommend it. So let me see. I mentioned I watched Scream Queen again last night.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched, have you seen Kajillionaire?
No. Is this a show?
That's a pretty good indie movie. It's got Deborah Winger. The guy, I always think of him as the guy from 6 Feet Under because I can't remember his name, Richard. It was a little indie film, I think A24, that didn't, just one of those mini films that didn't normally have much of a chance. Mm-hmm. And so I was hoping when we reopened again last, in August, that we were going to be able to showcase a lot of these smaller films that used to be just swallowed up by blockbusters. And people still didn't want to come see him. But I
Bummer.
watched that and Tenet, and what else did I see on the big screen? I feel like there was one more movie I saw.
I love how it's like we're remembering what we saw in theaters like it was years ago.
There hasn't been anyone in this movie house in 30 years. So it feels
I feel like if we walked into the Alamo now, it'd be like The Shining with like the backlot being the bar, and we just would sit there, and like ghosts would probably be talking to us, wanting to serve us a drink.
That is a perfect. I could totally see that.
Yeah.
I saw Hubie Halloween.
Oh, you're better than me.
It was good. But what I really, really liked and can't recommend enough is The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Oh, I've heard things about that.
Really, really good. Sacha Baron Cohen is in that, and he plays Abby Hoffman, this activist who just got a lot of shit done in the 60s. Was kind of one of my childhood idols. I wasn't alive in the 60s. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but like just my parents talking about that time. And then Cabin in the Woods. I had not seen Cabin in the Woods.
Oh.
So I finally saw that. And
what did you think?
It was nothing like what I just kind of thought, oh, it's a horror movie and here's the cast.
Yeah.
No idea what that. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, Cabin in the Woods is okay. So the more that movie's aged, the more of like a split divide I feel like there is. There's like the pure horror fans who are like, no. And then there's like the people who love having fun with horror movies and like some of the ridiculousness are going to like eat it up, you know?
Yeah.
But let's see. If you liked Cabin in the Woods, I think you should watch Eli Roth's Cabin Fever. It's more of like Cabin in the Woods, but like it doesn't have like the satire element of it at all. It's basically, I think, what Cabin in the Woods tried to like copy off of. But then again, it's an Eli Roth movie, so be cautious when you watch it.
I think what I'm looking for anymore in a movie is to be surprised. Like had like that mind stimulation. Like I didn't see that coming, and it just wakes up. Especially when you're just sitting at home all the time.
Yeah.
Please make my mind work. Just fire up some synopsis in there somewhere. That's all I need.
Man, the last movie I saw in theaters was Tenet. Can you believe that? And that was actually my first Nolan movie in theaters. I felt like a baby.
Same, because I had never, it's not that I wasn't a Nolan fan. It's just that like when the Batman franchise came back around, I was a big Keaton Batman fan. And so as each new Batman iteration came, I got a little less enthusiastic. Plus I also loved Marvel,
Yeah.
So it wasn't an open boycott or anything, but I just had no interest, and I didn't know who he was. That like in the early days, that didn't mean anything to me. Christopher Nolan, like, so what? It's a different Batman again. Not doing it. And so Tenet was the first one I saw in theaters, and I didn't expect to like it because I had heard just not bad things, but like the sound is messed up on purpose, and it's 3 hours long, and I was nervous about being in a theater 3 hours with when COVID, but I was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. So I did.
Yeah. I wore a mask in the theater the whole time. I don't know. I think I'm lucky. I feel like, cause like I wear a mask and it doesn't bother me. Like I'll be in the car and I wear it and I forget to like, oh, I wear my mask, or I'm with people and I'm sitting down and like, you have your mask on? And I'm like, oh, I don't, like, I really don't, but it doesn't bother me. But when I was in Tenet, I could tell there were some people like, like lifting the mask up because it was hard. And luckily for me though, that movie flew by. Like it was a longer movie, but it felt like it flew by pretty quick.
I thought so too.
But I'm like you, like with Nolan, I didn't really pay that much attention to. I always got like this stigma about Nolan. What, like, if you like his movies, like, you know so much more about movies. And in my mind, when he was, I think I was in high school probably, and just in community college when he was coming out, and I was just like, I've seen a lot more movies than what these people are talking about because they saw a Nolan movie. So it's like, I'm protesting. I'm not going to watch these Nolan movies, which is really silly because I hear they're pretty good. But I really like Tenet. I think it's because John David Washington was in it, and I really like him a lot, especially like Black Klansman. He's fantastic.
So good.
Yeah. and Robert Pattinson's chemistry with him was perfect. And of
That's
course,
what
the
I
new
thought.
Batman, you know.
I just kept thinking, like, the back and forth, the way they're just their rapid fire exchanges and how quickly they were able to move and converse. It was almost like a subplot of the movie.
Mhm.
I was like, they have got a really good rapport and great chemistry on screen. And then David, my former assistant, who is clearly dumb, said it sucked. So, yeah. And that we almost never agree on a movie. And so this was no exception. But he's a big Nolan fan. Like, he was one of those, like, Nolan guys, you know, that intimidates everybody else. And then he said, yeah, I hated it. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, how could you not? And
You have to like something in that movie. You can't just hate it.
Yeah. And he loves John David Washington too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he's
interesting. It's weird. Like the Nolan movies, it's like Nolan fans are always like the first to be like, it's not good or not. That's it. You know, close the book on it. And then it's like, I know you and I just saw and we're like, it's pretty good actually. Really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'm gonna watch
on the big screen. Like, what?
Yeah. I definitely understand why Nolan is like such a freak about his big screen stuff. I definitely get that.
Yeah, it needed to be seen that way.
But I mean, I haven't seen any of the movies you've been talking about, and I'm actually really jealous. I don't have Netflix anymore. It's like with streaming movies, I've been like trying to like, you know, keep a distance with because of all these physical movies I own, and I have to justify purchasing them and watching them. But I do see there's some good stuff on streaming, so that's really exciting. Let's see. I haven't seen really anything else except on Amazon Prime. I saw this one indie movie that's called Save Yourself, I believe. That was pretty fun.
I was wondering if you saw that. We had that in the theater, but I didn't catch that one. I think it was I was going to watch it the night I was hosting trivia, because we had a few trivia nights back, and then we just suddenly closed. I thought, you know, it was the same weekend it opened, and I was like, oh, I'll just catch it, you know, like whatever. And I'm like, oh, great, you know, it's. But they sent out like free masks. I can't remember what company it was. Was it Neon? I don't know, but anyway, the masks say "Save Yourself" and others, and so I loved that a whole lot.
That's awesome.
And I keep seeing it like every single day. I see it on my home screen menu, and I'm like, when are you going to watch that damn movie?
It's fun. It's such a weird movie, but it's fun.
I'm like, it's definitely looks different. You know, it looks like something that hasn't been done.
I applaud the filmmaking on it. It has some missteps, but the comedy and the chemistry is really good, and it's really fun actually. So I can't badger it at all. I think for the most part, I've been watching a few older movies. A lot of people are watching noir films because it's quote unquote Noirvember. So have to get in on that.
I've not heard that before somehow.
Yeah. So basically people were watching a bunch of like old noir movies from the 30s and 40s. So basically anything with Humphrey Bogart in it. And
I went through that phase, and it was like the AFI Top 100 list.
Yeah, a lot of them will probably be on there. I kind of like the neo-noir movies personally. Those like remakes of them, or like different of the same cloth, basically in like the 60s and 70s. I think those are a little bit more fascinating.
Like that. I did the free trial of the Criterion Channel.
Yeah.
For like a month or a couple weeks, and so I was like watching 5 movies a day, just trying to soak up that. I'm like, I can't keep spending money on all of the. I was counting them all up, and I had like every streaming subscription, and my bill for like rentals was $200 in 1 month. I'm like, you don't have a job. Nobody's paying you to watch these movies.
That's awesome. Okay, Jen. So like, if you need to borrow someone's streaming service, let us know. We will be glad to let you borrow ours. Like So like I know, you know, Disney Plus, you know, it's common, it's conquering everything basically now. And like I was like so anti-Disney about it, and I was like, I'm not doing Disney or whatever. Like screw that. But recently I really wanted to watch Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen with Lindsay Lohan, and I could not find it anywhere. And then I saw it was on Disney Plus, and I had me being so staunch about it, I'm like, I'm not going to do a free trial or anything like that. So I was like, hey, does anybody that I know have a Disney Plus, and what my friend Daniel did, he let me borrow it. So shout out to him for that. But then I immediately logged off after I watched it. I was like, all right, I did what I needed to do. I'm gone.
I have a lot of resentment toward that company as well. So I don't have one either. And so I just switched my cell phone provider, and they're like, do you want like Disney Plus? And I said, no. And they're like, well, it comes with, and I was like, I don't give a shit.
Oh, yeah.
I want it. I want any part of that. So
are you like me that has like those weird crusades?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, I don't know why, but I'm gonna stick to this one thing.
Yep.
But then they're like, Cris, but Star Wars, and then Marvel. And I'm like, the exception. I don't even like these Marvel movies that much. In my mind, I'm saying that. And now I'm actually like a kid with popcorn watching them. But yeah, I need to get into those Star Wars movies soon. Speaking of that, it's almost usually around this time I start to watch them, but I've been really lazy about that. But Jen, for those who are still listening, so Jen, Jen, she worked at the Alamo, and she would program a lot of really fun events. If anybody who has an Alamo knows, they do things differently at movie theaters. Like they're really staunch about the keeping quiet. They have so many cool, fun movie events. I think one of the first I attended was really fun. It was that Burt Reynolds tribute with Smokey and the Bandit. That was fun. And you get to do like sing-alongs. They have like dress-up days. It just was such a fun time. And we're reminiscing now that we're all stuck at home or wearing masks, and we can't do that anymore. But Jen, also, did you get to go because the Alamo let you, or did you go on your own? Which either way is really cool. So you went to Fantastic Fest, which is a film festival.
Yeah.
And you got to see that Scream Queen documentary that recently came out.
I did. I actually missed Mark Patton was at one of the he was at the opening night one, like the premiere of it, and we got there. Like there are two halves. There's like, you know, the first leg and second leg. So I didn't do the full 8 days. I did the second half, and then Alamo provided my ticket. I took my husband, so we bought his, and because I needed to know, and thank goodness, you know, I didn't put it off till next year, because then it wouldn't have happened. But so I missed like a couple of the really cool things, the talent that was there, and that was one of the things I missed, and I was really sad because I remembered seeing, like, I remember vividly when Nightmare on Elm Street 1 came out. And it was because my parents wouldn't let me see any scary movies. I was little, you know. My aunt was a senior in high school. And so she got to see it, you know, and it scared her. And she told my mom it scared her. And my mom's like, if it scared Linda, you are not watching that movie. And I was like, you wouldn't let me watch it anyway. You don't let me do anything. And so I snuck watched it, you know, like many things you do when you're a kid and your parents you do it anyway. I snuck, and it terrified me. You know, that mattress scene and the blood, it totally stuck with me. And so I didn't want to see any more movies that were scary. And so it was a little while before I saw 2, and it still scared me. But, and I was still very young, but the thing that really stuck with me, you know, the first one had the bloody mattress, blood on the ceiling, but the second one had that scene where Freddy's like caressing his face, like with his...
Daddy can't help you now. I need you, Jesse. We got special work to do here, you and me.
And I was like, are they going to kiss? Like, what's happening? But like, you know, when you're a kid, you're not really thinking about, I just knew that there was something really weird about that whole scene. And so that I remembered all the way through. And, you know, I didn't think too much more about it until I heard about Scream Queen. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, that was a whole thing. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's good to know.
You know, Robert Englund was talking about it, and then like they said, Mark Patton's like, then they stopped, and so then it fixed my makeup, and then told me, don't let him put that in your mouth.
Yeah. It's like the script writer was like, wouldn't it be crazy if like Jesse and Freddie, I don't know, maybe kiss like on the stairwell or something weird like that?
And it would have blown up everything. I think in a way.
I love that documentary. It was so great. And I thought I knew already a lot about this movie. But that documentary just opened up so much more to me that I didn't even know was there. And it talks about so many important things that you forget were happening during that time. But yeah, I'm like you. 1984 Nightmare on Elm Street is one of my all-time favorite horror movies as well. Like I think that's the franchise I grew up watching the most. My mom was opposite. So when I was a little kid, she, probably people would be like, oh, this is kind of sus of your mom. But like, I was like really little and she let like me and my cousins like watch all of them. And it terrified me. But like then and there, I was like, this is what I like though. It's like, I like being scared like this. And that I think I was in 3rd or 4th grade. We had a Halloween dance at school and I made my own Freddy Krueger costume and she helped me with it. Like we made my own sweater. We found an old hat. The only thing we bought was the mask and the claws, but it was like my favorite Halloween costume. It's like right then and there, it's like, I love Freddy Krueger. I love horror movies. Like, thanks, Mom. But then she bought like those old 4-film packs, like you get 4 movies for like $4 or whatever on DVD. So obviously she had to buy all of them with the Nightmare films. So then we watched all of them. And like Nightmare 2 was always the one I like gravitated to the most because it's the only one with a male protagonist. But also because I loved that first one so much. As a kid, I didn't want to like always sit and watch the first one all the time because it's such a serious, fun movie. And the second one is a lot lighthearted in like its tone. So I think to me, it's like, oh, it's basically the first one, but like lighter. So I always would watch that one a lot. But when I watched Scream Queen, I really enjoyed the background information for that movie because I get, 1985 is when it came out. So a year later, most sequels usually take about a year or two to come out. So as I've gotten older and I love sequel movies, it's more fascinating to learn about that. But before we go into that, I forgot to even ask, do you even like sequel movies, Jennifer? Like, like as being someone who opens theaters and shows programming, like where do sequels lie with Jennifer?
I admire sequels because I think that they have all the pressure, Anytime you have a sequel, automatically make judgments, whether you're conscious of it or not. You're either like, ugh, sequels suck or sequels are never better than the original. Why are they doing this? Da, da, da. And then you have the people who are like, hell yeah, give me more of these characters. And I am a real optimist that way. So, obviously if it's a movie I didn't care about the first one, who cares? I don't, whatever, but like any movie that I enjoy or even movies that I tolerate, I mean, I'm going to watch the sequel. It could surprise me. There are definitely cases I think where the sequel is better than the original. Not very many, but it does happen. So there's always, why not check it out?
Yeah, and I think as a kid, when it came to sequel movies, I was very aware of them, but I never tried to compare which one was better or not than the original. They were all just like one big story for me. So I think that's why 2 is so weird.
Yeah, Star Wars, I didn't, like everybody's going to have their favorites if you're a Star Wars fan. And for me, it was, like I think we talked about this Return of the Jedi because it was that I love the Ewoks, I love that.
Yep, exactly.
Because I was 8 or 9 when it came out, and so that's got a soft spot in my heart. But that that was the third one that came out as far as by year, and then Empire Strikes Back I think was better too. So like the 2 and 3 were my 2 favorite movies in the entire franchise, and so it is possible. It is possible to like knock it out of the park.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I realized that when I rewatched the Scream movies. When I watched Scream 2, I was like, oh, I liked this one way more than the first one. And I really like that first one already, So it's going to be excited for that new one that'll be coming out hopefully next year. We'll see. But Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So I'm glad you really liked it. And, we've talked about it before even recording about the movie. And I really think people should watch Scream Queen after they've seen it. You know, some people might watch like think if it's like it's a making of, and they might watch it before to get that story. But definitely watch it after, because like you will appreciate that second one so much more. Because that first watch for Nightmare 2, I'm always curious to see what people reactions are to them. So like I always recommended it to like my friends, and like Daniel watched it a little underwhelmed, and he's definitely grown and loved it now. And like when I showed it to Seth and like to Nathan and a few other people, they start to enjoy it. Some parts of it doesn't work for them, but I love seeing so many different reactions to this movie. I think it's actually growing in cult status now more than ever. And I think that documentary highlights that.
I love that. And I think too, it kind of depends on, you know, where you were. If you weren't born in the 80s, if you weren't alive when that came out, and you don't really, you know, have the memories of that whole culture and that whole scene, you know, it might sit different. But, you know, to me, it just perfectly encapsulated everything about the mid 80s. Like just all of that cheese, the hair, the clothes, the lifestyle, the way people talked, it for better or worse, it nailed it. You know, you look at other movies that came out that year, Back to the Future is one. And that was, you know, that's not just the movies. That's what people really looked like. Really talked like. And those were the things that were, you know, it just felt like that was the era where like TV, music videos, all of these, you know, visual elements that didn't, you know, like billboards that like on Times Square that with videos and movement, everything felt so like new, and let's throw more neon on it. Let's light it up brighter. And so for all of those reasons of excess that the 80s absolutely was, I think it was a great snapshot.
Yeah, this movie has like so much different types of clothing. Like there's like the leotards that girls would wear all the time, the insane button-ups guys would wear like on like to school, and like the shirts, like the cutoff tees that guys would wear. This movie has a lot of that, and I think it's really fun to see. And it's funny that
people really did it.
Yeah. Like bring that stuff back, right? But in 1985, when this movie came out, I mean, you had like Fright Night that was coming out at the time. You had, was it Day of the Dead, and I think Return of the Living Dead, both coming out as well. I think Reanimator came. You know, you get a lot of these really big like horror movies that came out. But when you watch that documentary, and then when you watch Nightmare 2, it's like this movie probably competed at first with a bunch of those movies. I think from what I gather from that documentary, and then like the reaction to the movie after, it slowly started to fade into obscurity. And for the reasons, obviously, this movie is very famous for being very homoerotic. And granted, I never noticed that stuff when I first watched the movie. To me, it was just more of like part of the story. And like, I didn't really have anything to connect that to. So I was like, to me, it was normal. And I was like, okay, like whatever. Like Freddy caressing Jesse's face at the stairwell. To me, that was like Freddy being Freddy, you know, like just being very creepy and almost horny in a way. Because he definitely is in the first one with Nancy. So why wouldn't he be with Jesse in this one? So it didn't mean anything like in terms of like a subtext of sorts. And I think that's like where Mark Patton definitely had that passion for, was the subtext, because it basically ruined his career, which is so sad to see, because I wanted to see more movies with him. He was so good in this movie. He's called the only male scream queen because his scream in this movie really is, it is very loud, and it's a famous scream for sure. I love it. And what I think this movie, I love so much about it versus this first one. Like I love that first one 100%, but this too is like my favorite. And I think it's because there's so many more iconic goofiness in it that like works so well. So you get Jesse dancing in his room while he's cleaning up. And I'm like, hey, I remember when my parents yelled at me to clean my room, and I would play music and dance to it. And my mom would come in and see me dancing when I'm cleaning my room. Like I've done that, you know, like gym class being so stressful, you know, and like bullies and like, teasing in gym class and people watching. Totally remember that too. Going to a new high school. I did that. It's like all these elements that are part of my life. I think I saw a Nightmare and I never thought of a subtext. I just always figured that's the story.
Yeah. Like, if you see it when you're a kid or see anything when you're a kid, there's a lot of things that you pick up on later and that you missed because kids just don't, there's a lot of kids don't know. And I don't know how many movies, like I remember watching movies with my parents, they would laugh at something and I was so mad because I didn't get it, and I wanted to know why they were laughing. And then you get that stuff and I think that's the case here. Like seeing it as an adult for the first time, which I'll never, have that experience. I haven't seen it as a kid. Things sit differently because you have a better like total picture. Like, okay, I see that. Yeah, no, but yeah, like for me, it's forever just going to be, it was just a scary movie, man. It wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then I hate that it ended up just damaging his career so bad, like killing it basically.
Yeah. Then the documentary definitely does highlight that, but Mark Patton, he's the star of the movie. He plays Jesse. I thought he does a really good job as like being so like these franchise horror movies when they were coming out, they always had like these young stars and starlets like in their movies and these horror movies, and they end up growing like big. You had like Kevin Bacon in the Friday series, Jamie Lee Curtis in the Hot series, Nancy Lamkamp. She ended up doing some things after Nightmare for sure, but you had Johnny Depp in that movie. And in this one, I think Jesse was tapped, played by Mark Patton. I think he was tapped to do some great things after, but he got to because David Chastain, the screenwriter, I guess, almost basically outed him as being a gay man during the 80s, and that was a big no-no apparently. And so yeah, he really did not recover. It was so weird in the documentary. It talked about how he immediately just left town, like he just went to Mexico and like hid. Like that's so sad and so scary for someone who's in a big budget movie, not big budget, but like a big well-known movie franchise at the time. But I guess I think when he plays Jesse in this movie, he feels like he's not playing a part. It feels like him. He's very vulnerable. He has that scream. He's very confused. But like he's also like very brave at times too, like the way he stands up to Grady in this movie at times, which I love. Grady and is his friend and like enemy in the same time. It works so well. But I don't know. And then Kim Myers, his love interest, she's gorgeous in this movie. I don't see her in anything else after it. So it's such a weird movie where a lot of the people in those movies don't get acknowledged after the movie came out. At least in Nightmare 3, I mean, you get Patricia Arquette, and a lot of those returning characters are in the fourth movie. But in the second one, none of them are mentioned or talked about again. It's such a weird one.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's all so true.
So when you saw Nightmare on Elm Street 2, like, what did you think? Like when you first saw it, like, were you like, wow, that's such a 180 from the first movie, or were you like, cool?
I was still young enough that I was like, I remember thinking that I was basically grown up now because I wasn't as scared, Yeah. So like, just smug. So well, I guess movies don't scare me anymore. So whatever. And that's honestly all I can remember thinking was that it wasn't as scary. And then I saw Stephen King's Carrie like the next year, and I was like, oh, never mind. I'm still really scared. I'm scared still. But yeah, I would classify it now. It's definitely a cheesy movie. As much as I don't like to use that word for a movie, but it is just full on cheese. But I also think that makes it more entertaining. So I would argue that in some ways it's a better movie than one, because it kind of it maintains the storyline, of Freddy terrorizing teenagers, but it also somehow brings in the subtext and then also this whole other genre of like horror comedy almost. Mm-hmm. Before that was really a thing, and I think it did it really well.
Yeah, I would say it's a movie with a personality of its own, Yeah. Because like you watch the movie and it's like, oh, I'm watching Nightmare 2 right now for sure, And
yeah.
Yeah, I think I maybe I give it a lot more like of a credit and excuse because like it's the second installment of this franchise. And like when I think about like these 80s slasher or horror movies, it's like, man, how do you figure out, navigate how to make these things franchises? You know, like after the first Halloween movie, I think Halloween 2 does a great job. Friday the 13th Part 2 does such a great job too. But it's like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you know to drive a movie into a franchise or not? You know, like how do you make it? Do you do more of the same from the first one? Do you make things a little different? Like, what do you do? And I feel like Friday definitely just did the same thing in a way with different people. Halloween 2 just continues from that first movie to make it more of like one big movie. And then Nightmare decides to go in a different direction. So maybe I give it a little bit more credit because it's like they didn't know what to do with this Freddy character. And like they just know that he sells and people would pay to see him. But it's weird because in this movie, he's not in it as much at all.
Yeah.
But when he is in it, it is pretty good stuff. Like we talk about him caressing Jesse's face and him screaming, but he rips his head off to show his brain. That's awesome. Yeah. He pops out of Jesse's body. It's just such a, like, there's so many grotesque scenes in this movie with Freddy though, even though he's not in it as often.
Yeah, I agree. It was really, I liked all of the things they did, you know, because that's the stuff that sticks with you. Just those little scenes, like you said, popping out Jesse, and then just crashing through the sliding door, and just it just, you know, like it's scary, but it's fun, and I think it helped a little bit too. Like there are still times to this day that I will take a running jump onto my bed because I don't want somebody to stab me through the mattress, you know?
Yeah.
So like this made it almost made him a little more personable. Like, you know, like it gave him, he wasn't, I mean, he's still a monster. But you also kind of like rooting for him in a weird way. You're like, that Freddy, that guy, that little so-and-so, what's he going to do next? You know?
And he definitely was like the one from those, and you probably knew growing up when they were coming out, but these slasher movies, he's the most personable from all of them. He's just not just the masked silent killer, you know? So I think that's why we like Freddy. And I'm like, why shouldn't he not have he has to have a movie that has him like being so flamboyant and being so personable. You know, I feel like this is the movie for it. And then when you get 3 and like 4 and those, like he's still more comical and scary as a monster, but he's a little bit more serious and toned at times too, you know?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. He does have a personality because he talks.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's not just like slowly stalking, you know, through the forest or through the camp or through the water even. Like he's just, you know, he's just doing his best, just out there hustling, you know, trying to get his kills. He's not talk. And that's why, you know, like I do have a Freddy sweater. I don't have any of these other costumes. Like he was my A1 from day one, man. He was Freddy.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you like that movie just as much as probably me too. And it's I think it, like I said, I really think this movie has been growing in popularity. And with Scream Queen coming out, I mean, it got so many great awards and accolades. It's just so nice to see. Granted, I wish it had a Blu-ray. It just has a DVD and it's streaming. But it shows a lot of like, you know, like conventions that like really like promoted Nightmare 2, and there's so many people that like that movie means a lot to them, you know? So I think that's really cool. So in a way, that movie, it feels sad because Mark Patton's career didn't take off, but like he's almost been rejuvenated and embedded in people's minds and like helped people in their lives because of like the things he had to go through. I got to actually meet him once at the Patio Theater in Chicago.
Yeah.
And he was so nice. He was such a nice guy. He was so funny. He was with Linnea Quinley, on stage, and they were, you know, she was also in Return of the Living Dead that same year, which is funny. But they were just, their chemistry was just so good. You can tell like other actors of this era, they gel with him so well.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's like to have people like that and like who are famous and like who did movies like be like that, so down to earth. It's like really refreshing because you see so many scandalous things about movies. Kind of nice to have a breath of fresh air to see some of these 80s actors come back out.
I think so too. Yep.
You know, so yeah, if anybody's wondering, I do have a Nightmare on Elm Street 2 poster. It's right by my bedside where it belongs, so he can look over me. And
it should be.
yeah, and you know what's crazy? The title cards, like the slogan for that poster says, "The man of your dreams is back."
Yeah.
And it's funny because our screenwriter was like, I didn't know it was a gay movie for so long. I'm like, but you put that as like the subtext for the movie.
Yeah, that all of his stuff. I was like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't understand what the harm is in just owning stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, you're not. Yeah, I don't buy it.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful about that documentary is like Mark finally gets to confront him after all these years, and he gets his apology and he wants an explanation. He finally does get it. And with that documentary, it's the first time all of those, the director, Jack Shoulder, and the actors, they all come together for the first time since that movie. And it's like, that's kind of crazy when you think about it. Because like, I guess, well, Kim, she didn't do any movies after this. And Robert Russler, I believe is his name. He ended up doing like Vamp, which is a 80s vampire movie. Like it's a sensual vampire movie with Melanie Griffith. Like, I mean, it's fine. It's okay. You know, but he's in that. It's just so weird. Like that's such an oddball cast. And I think that's why I like it. So, but yeah, Jen, is there anything else you want to say about Nightmare 2 or at least Scream Queen?
Just that it's worth a watch. And I definitely think you should watch in that order, the movie and the doc. Because I don't want, you know, like I feel like the doc would definitely color everyone's perception of the movie. So if you haven't seen either, definitely watch that movie.
Yeah, definitely watch the movie. You can get it as a standard Blu-ray double pack. You can get the collection. That the Nightmare on Elm Street box set, it's so lame. It's so boring for a movie with that, like that's so popular and embedded in pop culture. It's such a boring collection release. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I definitely recommend people watch it and, you know, let us know what you think of Nightmare on Elm Street 2. If you haven't seen it for the first time, now's the time to watch it. Just be warned, there's a lot of male ass cheeks in this movie.
Yeah. Like it was always girls. You didn't see guys, and so that was another big groundbreaking. Oh my God, it's boys, but what?
Yeah, it's one of those things where the gym teacher's getting whipped, and I'm like, that's where my internal fear of like public showers started. You know, because I was so young when watching it.
Scared of public showers. That's the real night.
Yes.
Class showers. But yeah, that whole shower scene.
Yeah, I remember one time when I was a freshman in high school, and I went from a private school to a public school, and I went to, I don't know, like after gym class, they have showers. So I was like, I've seen a bunch of 80s movies where guys shower after gym class. So it's like, that's normal, right? And like no one would shower. And then I went in there and someone's like, yo, who's taking a shower right now? And I was like, thinking about that scene, I'm like, I'm going to get ass whooped right now. I just know it's going to happen.
Our teacher used to stand by the shower, like, because it was like a little shower room, basically, right? You know, she would stand by that door and make sure that we went in there. And like all these girls would try to hide their bra straps under and then just wrap a towel around them and look like they were just wrapped in a towel. And she would check. It's
so weird.
It was pretty weird, yeah.
Right, and then Porky's came out, and then girls were like, guys suck, and it's like, we're never using these showers again. And I was like, yeah, probably. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being on and just like hanging out. I do love to hear your thoughts on stuff since you see so many cool things before most people even get to. So, yeah, I really appreciate it. And I hope I can have you on here again. Maybe we'll have to tackle a different sequel
sure.
some other time.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'm always down to come on. Let's not wait 7 months next time.
Oh man, I'm getting called out. Definitely, I will hold you to that. You got my word. Yeah, but if you like, right. Well, if you love Jen and her thoughts and opinions, I definitely recommend you check out her blog as well. It's just, like I said, it's just really great stuff, especially for people who are at home. It'll be good reads, I think. So thank you, Jen, for coming on. My name is Cris here at Inside the Sequel. And remember, if you aren't watching the Nightmare on Elm Street 2 movie, do you even care about movies at all? Anyway, We'll see you next time.